Anyway, all right. I'll probably edit some of that stuff out of there so this isn't too long. But I did want to get to our main attraction tonight. I wanted to talk to Aaron. And Rob, you feel free to jump in here too if you want to ask some questions. But I am going to just start off with I'm going to ask him a lot of the questions I asked him on our podcast. I think it's helpful for you guys to hear from a student and not just Rob and I, even though Rob and I are we were students as well, still are. I learn a lot from you guys. But so Aaron, welcome. Thanks again for coming on tonight. I know you got two young kids, right?
Three,
Three. Good Lord. So he's got his hands full. How old are your kids?
3, 6, and 9.
Oh my gosh.
Nice
Wow.
even spread.
Yeah. I gotta ask Travis. I always ask him and I always forget. So I think his kids are spaced similarly because he has three boys. Now, do you have all boys or all girls or
No,
what?
the two oldest are boys. The youngest is a girl.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's good. I was fortunate to have two girls. Everyone says, "Why is that fortunate?" It's like because boys are. I see other parents with boys, and I know what I was like as a kid. So boys are horrible.
My
Anyway,
brother, he's tried for a boy, but he's got 4 girls,
wow,
and they're all ages, I think, 6 and under. Yeah.
wow,
It's a busy house when we go over there, but it's fun. We bring our kids over. We all have a good time.
that's awesome. Well, that's
Yeah.
that's awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. Um, Aaron's in Arizona, so his time frame we asked him to get on. It's kind of tight for him because this is right around when you spend most of the time with your kids because he's so far behind us in time. But um, so I appreciate you coming on. I think it's a great opportunity, especially for newer students, to see and hear from someone that has gone through what they're going to go through. So I'm just going to start with what we talked about in our podcast, and I really wanted to just lead out with what led you to explore options trading. Just give us a kind of rundown on how you came across options trading.
Yeah. Thanks, Peter. It's an honor to be here. And I initially started options trading because I was looking for, I don't know, more gains, I guess you could say. So the stock market, you can trade stocks. You can make 5, 10%, sometimes 20% gains in the stock market is what I would see typically. And I had already played around with the stocks a lot. I was probably trading stocks for maybe 10 years before I started trading options. Um, I think I mentioned in the podcast that my dad, he was always kind of encouraging us to look into stocks. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, we would look at the newspaper and we would look at our mutual funds and see how the mutual funds were doing from the newspaper article. I I don't think anybody does that anymore. But that was kind of the start of my journey. And my dad, he studied and got his, was it Series 6 or Series 7 license?
Hmm.
And so he was involved in finance a little bit, but then he kind of changed his paths a little bit. My dad, he likes to do a lot of entrepreneurial type stuff. In fact, my parents, they both own a flower shop. So they own a business that they've been running for, gosh, over 40 years.
Wow.
And yeah, I just wanted to get into options for the higher gains. So I read this book. My dad, he turned me on to this book called Sure Thing Options Trading by George Angel. I don't know if you've heard of George Angel before or watched any of
No,
his.
I hadn't, and
Okay.
I remember you mentioned it on the podcast.
Yeah. And so it looked like, I don't know, he was pretty well respected in the community, I guess. But that was years and years ago. I think the book was written in 1984, so before I was even born.
Wow.
And my dad gave me this book and he let me borrow it. And I was confused for the first 70 pages or so. But he told me, hey, our old mechanic who fixes cars, he would trade options, and this is the book that he used to trade options with. And he ended up making $1 million. trading options. Well, he ended up shortly after there losing $1 million trading options. But it was cool to know that, hey, this is the book that got that guy started. So maybe I can try to learn something. So I picked it up, got to page 70 and was fully confused. But once I got to that point, all of a sudden something clicked and I thought, you know what? I can, I think I can do this. Looking at my notes over here. So that was 2017, 8 years ago. And then the next year, 2018 in March, I wanted to make my first trade, and it was a covered call on Bank of America. And then later on in that year, I made a another trade. It was a cash secured put on Altria. I used to buy Altria stock when I was a kid, right? I don't know why. I never smoked or anything, but Altria paid this huge dividend. I think they still do,
Uh,
right? It's like 5 or 8%, something really high. Um, so that was 2018, and then 2019 I started trading a bunch of puts and calls. I made almost 30 trades and I had a 20% gain in the market on options trading. So I thought, hey, there's something here. And then in 2020 I made a trade on Tesla, and it was right before they had gone profitable. So it was 1,000% gain. And I thought that I was the best options trader in the world. And then the rest of that year, I just lost all of that money. It was just loss after loss after loss after loss, just trading the winnings of that amount. And so I figured, you know what, I've got to do something different. So I started searching the internet. I found a lot of people who were trying to sell options. There's a guy, I think his website is borntosell.com,
hmm,
and he would have these campaigns where you would sell an option, and then if it is a loss, then you would have a campaign where you kind of recover it. You do different things with it. I thought that was somewhat interesting, but I wanted to find somebody that would buy call options, because call options, and we talked about this in the podcast, where it's my lottery ticket, right?
yeah, yeah,
All you've got to do is pay $100 for a call option, or you can even buy a call option for probably $10 or whatever, depending on the stock, and it can go to the moon. You can have 1,000% gain on it, and all you paid was that small amount, and your risk is the amount that you paid for that stock. So to me, yeah, it's like buying a lottery ticket. Um, so I found Travis Wilkerson. I found his website, Learn Stock Options Trading, with a bunch of
hmm,
dashes in between.
yeah,
I liked what he had to offer. He had Market Club that was tied to it, so it looked fairly professional. Got involved in that. And that was pretty cool because you would buy, well, you're trend trading, and you were
hmm,
buying call options on stocks that were taking off. But you had to have the market taking off too, which is kind of like our strategy here. Hey, if you are above the 200-day moving average, above the 30-day moving average, it's all good and you can trade. Well, here we're trading SPY, SPX, and so you have more rules. You're not open to all of the stocks, which I feel like it's better because it keeps you confined in that on that trail. So I like to do mountain biking, right? And if you stay on the trail, you'll find your way home, but you go off trail, you'll get lost.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so in that was 2021. Well, actually, end of 2020 is when I joined Market Club. And then in 2021, I had the full year to trade Market Club. I made a looks like 20%, 26% gain on the 210 formula, and then 11% gain on the 3x growth strategy, and then a 22% gain on stocks. I think that adds up to 58%
That's awesome.
overall, which is huge. And then so I really learned to respect Travis at that point, and then he started advertising. I think that might have been where he was going through the phase of, am I going to do Market Club anymore or not? And I don't know, does he
Yeah.
still do Market Club?
No, it's yeah. As a matter of fact, I just started changing out all my links because I used to be an affiliate with Market Club, and someone emailed me the other day, and they're like, "Hey, this link doesn't work anymore," and I'm like, "Okay." So yeah, no, he stopped. I mean, the program's still out there. I just don't know if someone signs up for Market Club if they'll have access to it. I don't know how they do it now. We kind of don't do anything with them anymore. I mean, I still use Market Club, but yeah, I have access to his program on Market Club. So all the old videos are out there, but he hasn't recorded anything since January of 2024, I think was the last recording.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And
So
he was trying to steer his group towards SPY, SPX trading, which that's what we do
yeah.
here. So I feel like the whole Market Club community should move over here because this is where the community's at now. But going back to my story, so that was 2021, and then 2022 he offered the put ladder strategy. And so from February all the way until February of the next year, I traded put ladder. In 2022, that was a big down year for the market, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. That was our bear market. Yeah.
Yeah, so that rocked us about mid-year with our put ladder, but overall, I think I ended up about -5%, so we beat the market. That was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was fun, right? You're constantly every single week you're trading another option and you're kind of layering things. But at the end of the year, you do all this work and you're down 5%. I would so much rather be in this program just trading, what Travis likes to advertise now, the 10-minute trader. And I think that's probably why he doesn't do the put ladder strategy anymore. It's a lot of work. I don't know. Have you guys traded that before?
Oh yeah. Yeah. He stopped teaching the put ladder because um if we can't get people to duplicate the results, then
Yeah.
he'll stop doing it. So it doesn't matter how good we might do with it. A lot of people, the big thing is people would just break the rules. So,
Yeah.
um,
I know what you
yeah,
mean during that time.
yeah, that's a hard strategy because it's truly one of those strategies where it's like, look, once you start this, you can't stop it for after 6 months. If you're like, oh, I'm just going to unwind it, it's like, okay, you're going to lose money in many cases. So it actually can tend to work really well in down markets, but not necessarily 20. You didn't get the full experience of a bear market in 2022. Had that been a real bear market, you would have seen your ladder strategy actually do a whole lot different.
Okay.
Because yeah, because I did it in 2020 when we had the small correction for like 3 months, but that was a huge correction that they called it a bear market. It was a 20% correction, but the volatility spiked. So all my puts that I sold, I had to roll those very, very far out. But the puts I owned went through the roof. And so you could just easily unwind everything and end up with a profit.
Okay.
So it actually does very well, but it's hard. It's very
Well, I
hard.
beat the market on it, so
Yeah. No, and that's why, yeah, you would have done a positive return had you seen volatility because in 2022 volatility never got up to, I don't even think it got to 40.
mm,
And we saw a 65 volatility in this correction. So, and in most bear markets, volatility gets up into the 80s. So, yeah, if
okay.
you had seen the volatility, it would have worked well. But anyway, sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, so during that year, I was still trading the put ladder. I wanted to do it for at least a year, and that's why I did it from February to February of 2023. And in the middle of that year, he offered the Options Wealth Academy. So he kind of plugged you guys, and I joined the Options Wealth Academy at a discounted rate. And now I don't want to let go of it because I don't want to lose that discount, right? But it I didn't really do anything with the program. I kind of looked through it and watched the videos, but I was not trading any of the strategies yet because I wanted to give the put ladder that 1 year.
Yep.
So I was learning OWA strategies. One thing that really got me interested was the cash flow strategy. I had always been scared to trade a cash flow strategy, right? You've got an SPX trade that on one side of it you're selling an option and you're buying another one, but the one that you sell, that's a $600,000 option. That's a lot of money. And I had no idea that SPX didn't get exercised early.
Yeah.
It was just cash settled.
Yep.
But if I hadn't joined this program, honestly, I even after reading Travis's third book, probably would not have traded the cash flow strategy just because it was so risky to me because I didn't know the ins and outs of what could go wrong there.
Right.
And just like the SPY trades, I hear people talk about these SPY trades and they get called on them. Um, they have to end up owning the shares. And to me, I don't want to deal with any of that. I guess there's ways to get out of it pretty easily, but hey, what if SPY just keeps going down and down and down? Um, you've lost a lot of money by selling those put options. So yeah, I learned a lot about the put ladder, but gosh, joining the program middle of 2022, I didn't even start trading the put ladder until um, the end of 2023. So it took me a long time to build up to that. But the next year, 2023, I implemented the 3x growth strategy, which I was used to from Market Club,
Hmm.
and it's kind of a great strategy, but like we talked about in the podcast, if you're not used to it, if you don't have experience, you're probably not going to stick with it because it's tough. It's really boring to just
Yeah.
watch it do nothing for a long time. But then look at me, look at our trades versus Rob's. He's a month ahead of us and he's already at 50%.
Right.
So we
Yeah,
just
I
if
was gonna I was gonna say, when it's not boring when you're winning.
yeah,
All that inaction when you exit at 100% and then reinvest it. That's fun.
yeah.
That's the only exciting part. So yeah, it's boring up until that point,
Mhm.
but boring usually equals profits. That's the nice thing about it.
Yeah, agreed. So yeah, I traded the cash flow finally last year. It was a full year of cash flow trades. I had one loss and 11 wins,
That's
and my
awesome.
account was up, I think, 9% from cash flow alone. And then 3x growth, it was a 40% overall win.
So
So that was,
almost a 50% return on your.
yeah, that was a good year last year.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome.
But last year it was, I mean, the market didn't really go down. It just kind of kept on climbing that staircase. It was
Yeah,
pretty fun.
well, we did have the correct. See, a lot of people forget that um, we did have a correction last year, but
Mhm.
it lasted 4 months, but it wasn't like this last one. I think when they're severe, like this one was almost 19%, I think.
Mm,
Last year it was just barely under over 10%.
okay.
Um, but but it didn't affect us really from matter of fact, I fell asleep at the wheel trading 3x growth because we went into stage 3 but only for like a week and a half. And I just wasn't in my broker platform. So by the time I got in it, I was like, oh, when did we get into stage 2? It was like, holy cow, we had a red monthly. But yeah, it didn't really affect us too much last year. Because Rob, I think we talked about this, he got out of his trades. I stayed in mine only because I was asleep at the wheel. And our profits were pretty much the same at the end of the year when it came to 3x growth. So he got out, got right back in because we went right back to Market Club reversal
Mhm.
and everything worked out. So yeah, but we technically had a 4 month
Yeah, it was
correction.
July to September
Yeah.
ish. Ish. I'm
Okay.
looking at a really small chart in my phone right now.
Yeah, I want
Yeah.
to say that was the time where I held out and I just didn't sell my 3x growth. And I probably should have, but I just
You,
hung on there.
Yeah, you get, I mean, you were fortunate because it was so quick it went into stage three. Um, like we see on average, because I was
Well,
going back and looking at it.
I don't
What's
think
that?
we went to stage three last year. I don't
I
see
thought
it.
we had a I thought we had a red monthly.
We had a weekly in July, and
Oh,
then it
maybe
went
I'm
back
thinking,
to
no, I thought that was last year. Let's see. Let's
no.
see.
I see all weeklies last
Oh,
year.
I'm thinking of, oh, so it
Yeah.
was October of 23. That's when I'm thinking of it. Okay, so you're right, Aaron. Last year we didn't have any. Last year was just a good year.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. It
Still had
was.
that good, decent pullback though that started in July off that.
Yeah.
Just surprising looking at this chart didn't go to stage three, but
Yeah,
uh,
because it did drop. But it was October when we went into. So if you look at Market Club, we went into stage three in October on October 3rd of 2023, and then we went right back into stage two on the 17th. So I don't know where I was for 2 weeks, but I totally missed it. I was supposed to get out. But no, you're right. Last year we didn't have any stage three. So you didn't do anything wrong last year.
Okay. Yeah, this year it's a little bit difficult, but I've got that experience of hey, following the program, following the templates. But gosh, the cash flow template, it's really hit me hard this year. My first three trades, it was minus $300, minus $300, minus $300. It was a little bit more than that. And so I'm already down almost $1,000 and I had zero winning trades at the time. Now I've got two winning trades that have been completed. So I'm down just about $700. But if I keep with these $160 wins, then it's going to take me, I don't know, what, five trades in order to go positive. So started looking at, I was trading a lot of at the money trades.
Okay.
And then now I'm looking at the in the monies because they have that better risk reward. But even in the money, I mean, I just traded one yesterday, actually the other day, and I am 2% in the money. And so I was able to bring in a profit of $200. Haven't booked it yet, but and then a risk of $300. So
How
that's
far out are you going when you're trading your cash flow?
this one is a September 18th of this year.
Okay. So when you trade you're new to cash flow for the most part. When
Mhm.
you're trading them, are you using the blueprint to say, okay, if we're in stage one, I do shorter term trades? How have you been doing them?
I try to just open up five trades at a time.
Okay.
And I try to usually only trade it during stage one.
Okay.
So stage one, it kind of opens you up to short and long term, right?
Yeah, I mean, so stage one you can go 30 plus days.
Mhm.
So stage two is 90 plus days. And then obviously you don't trade in stage two. If you look, or stage three, if you look at the template, it'll say like 90 to 180 plus days for stage two. And stage one, it'll say 30 to 180 plus days. Now I trade 6 months. All my trades, I go out 6 months.
Okay.
And no matter what, I always trade under the stage two rules,
Okay.
even if we're in stage one. Every once in a while, I'll throw in a 90-day trade when we're in stage one, but I'll only do that if I've hit an optimal entry point. And what that, so let's say, so I trade at the end of the month. So if let's say the green monthly triggered 3 days before, you remember the market club rules? Remember how we used to use when you got a trade triangle, you could trade within 5 days of that trade triangle. I don't know if you remember that because
Yeah,
we
I
were
think
trading
so.
so short term.
Mhm.
So if you saw a
Yeah.
trade triangle and it was 7 days ago, you wouldn't use it. It wasn't a
Right.
good time to trade it. You'd look for a new trade. So
Mhm.
I do the same thing with short-term cash flow strategy. I'll only trade a short, like a 90 day, sometimes a 60 day. I don't do 30 days anymore because I'm doing in the money. And because I'm doing in the money, I want to give the market plenty of time to make its move, you know. So now I just do now I'm just religious about I go out 6 months. And so each month I'm selling a spread 6 months out.
I think what you'll find too when you start doing in the money consistently, that next trade, if you're just sequencing it the next month, is going to put you out that far. Like for
It
instance,
Yeah.
does, yeah.
my next one I need to make, I have in one of those accounts, I have a gap in September, so I can choose to go there. Now that we're in stage one, or it's January for me. That's my next month. So I'll probably just go to January, to be honest. But I mean, I'm not averse to going in September right now either. It's still got a good amount of time, but
Yeah, and so when I get closer to the end of the year, I mentally struggle a little bit because I don't feel like I want to open up a January trade because of the
Well,
whole tax situation that you guys have
yeah,
talked about.
that's a good point with SPX especially.
Yeah.
yeah, that we've talked about that before. There's different ways to handle it.
I
Yeah,
I would say don't. I would say still enter it because you have more than half the year left. You could always exit it before the year ends.
that's what Travis does.
Yeah.
So, and that's so I had some clients what I used to tell my folks in 2.0 because that's where I used to deal with it the most. Um,
Mhm.
they're 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 trading very large accounts, so an unrealized gain on a cash flow trade on those accounts is astronomical. And so they would switch over to SPY. Well, a lot of them got assigned this year on SPY on those spreads. And it's not the end of the world. Your risk reward is still the same. So if you risked $1,000 on the trade and you got assigned, even though, you know, that could be 100 shares at $600, let's say, $60,000, you still have your other option to unwind it, and the loss will still be $1,000. It'll be exactly what your risk is. So it doesn't matter that those numbers look that way. But now I just tell them, look, the way Travis does is he just even if it's let's say it's November, he'll sell a trade that goes 6 months out, so it'll be into 2026. Come December, he just closes it. Doesn't matter because come January, he's going to open it right back up again.
The same exact trade.
Depends.
Okay.
Depends on what the market does. But typically, the market doesn't move a ton between near the end of like the last week in December to the first trading day of the year. It doesn't do a ton of movement. So you can usually just close it out. You get rid of that problem with the unrealized gain, and then you open it right back up again in January. That's the easiest way to do it. And then you don't have to deal with that. So then you don't ever change your strategy. Now, what it does for you too, because I trade every 6 months, when you first start the cash flow strategy doing it that way, it takes a lot of patience because you don't see a payday for 6 months, right? You got to wait a long time
Mhm.
for your first payday. However, when you hit your first payday, every month they start coming in because remember, you had been trading every 6 months 6 months ago, right?
Yeah.
And so now, and then if you just stay on that cycle, every month is basically it's an income day or an income month, unless you have a losing trade. So, but yeah, I had, I think I've only had two losing trades this year. So over the correction and everything, and I'm already trading into 2026. So all my trades are in 2026 now, which I'm okay with because it just means that I, in 2026, I'll just keep collecting my paychecks. It's basically how I look at it.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think my mistake was there was the beginning of the year, there was the green light, we were in stage one, and I just opened up 5 trades, right? Get my 10% out there, and then all of a sudden the market goes down and it's loss after loss after loss. So it was a little tough.
We've got paddles in the same boat, Aaron. That's what
Yeah.
exactly I showed earlier. I opened.
Yeah, I saw you had an $8,000 loss on that 100K
Yeah.
account, and I thought to myself, man, if you're winning $1,000 on each trade, you're gonna have to make 8 more trades just to break even on the cash flow. But I guess it happens some years, right? Last year, hey, we're up 10%, and that's the typical expected amount for cash flow. And sometimes you don't make a whole lot. Maybe you break even, but that's part of the cash flow trade, right?
Once you get your return on your cash flow will start going up.
Okay.
Because last year I did 33% of my cash flow.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it's just once you figure out here's the best way I can sum it up is when you do shorter term trades, you're going to trade a lot more than I will, which means it's just like Market Club. You remember in when you traded the Market Club template, you had more losing trades than winning trades. Like
Yeah.
you may not have done cash flow strategy in Market Club. I did. I did credit spreads. That's been my favorite strategy. So you'll have a lot more losing trades than winning trades. But remember, we used to manage those losses a little bit different. And you can do it here too. Our rules don't say you can't do that. It's just, I think a lot of people just follow the way I do it. They're like, set it and forget it, like Peter does. The problem with that is when you take a loss, it's a max loss, and you have to, if you're not used to it, you're like, crap, I just lost $1,000. For me, I'm just like, yep, this is the way it is, And then here's the beauty of it though. After a while, that doesn't bother you because you do, and Rob can attest to it. When you're trading in the money trades, you don't require 8 winning trades to get you back if you had 8 losing trades. Normally, normally we don't see 8 losing trades, but like that 8,000 you were saying, when he takes an $8,000 loss on a trade, his credit was probably closer to $4,000 or $5,000.
Well, it was multiple trades that added up, I think, to 8,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so
So
normally the risk reward is closer to a 2-to-1 risk reward.
Yeah, I think
So
he
if
was
you,
losing maybe 3,000 on a trade, and then
yeah, I've got 4 losing ones total. It was 20, about 2,500, 2,300, 3,000, 2,000. So
okay.
8,600 overall in losses on cash flow.
but what was your potential credit on those trades?
Um, let's see, 1360, 1640, 1,000. Sorry, I just lost. Yeah, 1360, 1640, 1,000, and 3,000. One of that last one was kind of weird. I had a 3,000 credit and a 2,000 risk. I don't know how I got that one.
Yeah.
I
So that's
never go above 2% in the money
so
ever.
that's a $7,000 potential, somewhere in the 6 to 7,000 potential credit on all those trades. So he lost 8 grand, but his potential. So you see what I'm getting at. So even though he lost 8 grand, it won't take him 8 trades to get back to break even. It'll only take him 1 or 2 trades to get back to break even. If you do in the money. Now, if you do out of the money trades, when you take a string of losses, it'll take you a long time to get back to break even because your risk is usually 3-to-1 at a minimum, depending on how far out of the money you go.
It's 8,000, Peter. 8,000 even.
In credit.
Yeah, that would have got
Oh, so you were close to 1-to-1.
it pretty close.
Well, yeah. So you'll see, Aaron, the more you trade it, the more you find your rhythm because like I don't trade exactly like Travis does. I learned to trade like he did at first, and then I figured out what worked for me.
Mhm.
some people don't, like I had a client that would manage his losses on cash flow. So what that meant was if we went into, so let's say we're trading cash flow and all of a sudden we go into stage two, any trade that was under, I think under 90 days, he would get out of them. So some of them would be at small profits, little losses, but he'd manage them, right? And then when he got back in under stage two or under the green weekly, he would just execute more trades. So you'll find your rhythm. You'll tend to see after you do the cash flow strategy you'll see it in the double digits most years.
And I just
Okay.
looked my 4 open ones that expire up to December. It's 7,900.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's half the amount of trades that I thought. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's again, depends on how you trade it, but the more you trade it, the better. So anyway, I digress. Sorry. Kind of went down a little rabbit hole there.
Ever.
So let me ask you something, because we talked about this on the podcast. What would you say? I think you kind of touched on it, but what's your biggest challenge that you face when it comes to trading options in particular? We talked about investing and trading, but if you just focused solely on trading options, what would you say your biggest challenge is trading them?
It's definitely sticking to the templates. There's all these bright, shiny objects that are out there. In fact, even today, I wanted to sell a put option on TQQQ. It's a week out so that I could make $100. Right? It's so tempting, and I've done that a couple times this year already. I don't know if it's just getting that dopamine hit or something like that, but it if those trades go wrong, then I'm stuck with TQQQ for whoever knows how long.
I went down that
Right.
rabbit hole a few years ago with that one, and it was like a dopamine hit from an iPad. Not a good one.
Yeah.
So how do you overcome so you wanted to do it, you didn't do it. What have you used to overcome that?
I try to stick with the templates. It's something that I've even broken the rules, like with the put ladder I mentioned. And if you stay with a strategy, you're gonna get used to it. I always like to tinker. I like to tweak things and oh, I can do things better than they've done it, so I'm gonna do it my way. And it doesn't always turn out the greatest when I end up doing it that way, but I don't know, that's just how I like to do things. That I'm more of a DIY person, and it's tough for me to stick to someone else's strategy 100%. But you do give some leeway here and there. You give options on, hey, you can trade so many days out, 30, 60, 90 days out, right? You're kind of giving those windows. And as long as we stay within those windows, hey, that's our freedom space. That's our customization. Let's stick within that. Let's not go trade TQQQ on the weeklies.
So, having said that, what would be what suggestions or advice would you give to a new student that just joined the Options Wealth Academy?
Find your template that you want to, or find your strategy that you want to trade. So whether it be 3x growth or the cash flow strategy, I started with the 3x growth because I had already traded it before. It was much easier to implement. But if you pick that strategy, stick with it for a year, see how it works out. Maybe dabble a little bit in the other strategy, but um, stick with the one that you've picked. And then once you've learned that, I mean, you guys have harped on that for a while too. Hey, pick a strategy, learn it, and then graduate and go ahead and you can maybe do the other strategy and learn that one, and then learn how to put them together. Putting them together is a little bit difficult because right now I'm 30% at risk on my 3x growth strategy. So then on my cash flow strategy, am I going to risk more than 10% of my account? Well, I'm already at 30%. So I'll risk, 1 to 2% per trade. Um, the 3x growth, I've already kind of built it up So I justify to myself, oh, it's the earnings from the last trade or something like that, right? You're always trying to justify things to yourself. So yeah, try to stick with the 30% max as well, I think is a good rule of thumb.
Yeah,
Yeah,
awesome.
if you go back to the first few months of recaps from 22 that we started OWA, you'll see what happened to me when I did 30% in 3x and 10% in cash flow when the market turned. It did not go well.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the usually the I think the hardest thing for most folks to grasp it, I was the same way. So when I first trading these strategies wasn't I didn't have as many difficulties because I learned the Market Club template, right? So the Market Club template is so much more work, right? Because you're constantly sifting through different stocks and stocks move so different. So yeah, you get those huge dopamine hits, but you get some massive lows, right? It's like, what the heck? It just triggered a green monthly. How did it fall 20% in a week, and you can't figure that out. So when I started learning the strategies we teach in 1.0, it wasn't too difficult for me other than I was like you. I like to tweak. I'm like, hey, Travis, why don't I do this? And Travis used to always tell me, hey, why don't you master the template first and then you can tweak it? And so I did. And then I realized, well, why the hell would I tweak it? It works, right? But when I started trading 2.0 with Travis, when he first launched it, that was more difficult for me because I was now trading my large account. And so when you take a loss on a cash flow strategy, even though it's 2% of your account, you know, 2% of a six-figure account is a lot of money, right? And so that's all you see you don't think of percentages at that point. You see dollar signs, right? You're like,
Mhm.
holy crap, that's more money than I make in a month. How did I do that? And so that's where actually sticking to the template is what's going to keep you out of trouble. Now you can trade those two strategies. The easiest way to do it is just split your account. So let's say you can't do it with a 10K account, but if you had a $20,000 account, you figure out, okay, can I do 3x growth strategy on smaller than 20K by risking 30%? And if you can, so let's say you do, which you can, let's say you do that and it risks 30% and it eats away at um, let's say 15 grand of your 20K account. Then you'll just do the 210 formula on 5K. And now you'll stay within a risk parameter that will work because it's hard to believe, but if you follow the template and get out on the red monthly, the worst I've ever seen is a 50% loss on a 3x growth strategy trade. So that's a 15% loss on your account, which sucks. It's not great, but it's easier to get back to break even from that loss than when you lose 30 or 40% on your account, right? So you'll usually keep it somewhere in the neighborhood of 20% worst case scenario. And once you're more versed in it, I would never suggest this for new students. Rob always harps on it. Just do one strategy when you're new, especially in real money. You know, you can do the cash flow in paper, but only do one in real
Do
money.
both because you have
Huh?
paper. So you can always do both because you have paper.
Yeah, that's how people should be learning it anyway. But um, all right, I there was one thing I wanted to ask you. Um, oh, I asked you this last time. You had a hard time, and I think you kind of already answered this. What would you say your greatest? We talked about your challenges, but what would you say your greatest strength is when it comes to your options trading?
Yeah, I would say it would be learning new strategies. I or maybe the want to learn new strategies. Like with the Market Club template, that was cool. And then Put Ladder, that was fun. Now I'm over here learning the 3x growth, which that was part of Market Club, and then the cash flow. That strategy is It's still something that I'm trying to wrap my head around, but I love trying to learn new things and even options itself. I feel like we're a very small community of people who actually trade options because first you had to learn the language, and then once you learn the language, you had to make that leap to trade an option, which I don't think many people have the guts to do that.
Yeah,
So it's pretty awesome that this community is options traders and we're here learning these new strategies.
cool. Well, that's awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I appreciate it. I think the new students will appreciate it as well, especially when you're getting started, how hard it can, and it can be a huge challenge. So to see it from another student, even though you've been doing it for a while, um, but to hear, I'm sure that they're gonna resonate with the struggles you talked about, and then even just the highs of being able to see winning trades. It's awesome to do. So I appreciate you coming on, taking time from your busy schedule. Tell your wife and kids sorry we took you away from the family for an hour or so, but and hopefully we can have you on again because it was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, you're welcome. And with
Yeah,
that,
actually, on
go ahead.
behalf of the OWA community, thank your family for letting us have you for this
Yeah, yeah, I know.
next few hours.
Yeah, I'm gonna break this up so I'll when I edit it, I'm gonna put these in two different videos right underneath each other in the weekly, but it'll be two different videos, and then I will eventually. I do want to start. Travis used to do a Hall of Fame. It's just hard. One of the hard things about our community, I noticed it in the Success Academy. I'm sure you remember this too, Rob. Is people don't really communicate a lot. Like it's like you don't. Sometimes you get flooded with a lot of questions, and then all of a sudden it's like radio silence. And but you find out, like, I've been trying to get a hold of Sally because she's another one. She's like, I think it was last year, she texted me or emailed me and she's like, I screwed up. I only generated like a 60% return. I'm like, how crazy is that, to be able to say that? So, but anyway, um, thanks, Aaron. Thank you, Rob, Rob's been busy with work. So thank you for taking the time out as well. And thanks for being here, Aaron. And for all of you guys, we're going to wrap it up and we will see you guys in August. This is our last weekly recap. Remember, we take July off for summer break. So have a good night, everyone.
See ya.
All right.